Chess is an old-school tactical war sim with multiple tournaments and no customization. There are no loot crates, there's only one map, and the hardest enemy is a bot.
Mate in 143 moves. No poo!
It's easy to play, but difficult to master, bait too. So it's like the opposite of Monopoly. There are no battle passes, and you get banned for using plugins. This is how to be the best chess player in the world. There's an old saying that goes, if you don't know where you've been, you've probably got Alzheimer's, and that means you're bad at chess. In essence, chess is a mod of an Indian game called Chaturanga that was developed over 20 years ago. The game had different playable characters back then, including chariots and elephants, and subsequently the boards were massive. They spread through Asia and Europe and eventually into my school, where I used to say things like, my rook to g4, checkmate, and my opponent would say things like, my fist to your face, don't call me mate. There are 32 playable characters in chess, which makes it more than twice as good as Street Fighter, half as good as Genshin, and far more people than the average chess player has ever spoken to. Fortunately, they all fall under one of 6 different job types, so the rules aren't hard and it's easy to learn the moveset. Pawns can only move forward, but they attack diagonally. They basically go full on Rocky, so for them life isn't about how hard they can get hit, it's about how hard they can get hit and keep moving forward.
That's how winning is done!
Unfortunately, every piece does a one-hit kill, so under no circumstances can they ever get hit. Castles move forward and backwards, just like in real life. Bishops move diagonally, unless you do what is known as an illegal move, which you can do as many times as you want, but every time you do it, the Catholic Church will move you to another board. This is a knight. You can actually pick the knight up and move it over other pieces, which is a big advantage in what is commonly known as a 2D game. Kings move in any direction, but only for one square. They're great for DDR, but not for much else. The queens can move in any direction for as far as they like.
Maybe we should get into chess.
A lot of people think this is quite feminist for a game that started 1500 years ago, but originally they only had a 1 square radius and they could only move diagonally. At some point the Portuguese extended her range, and instead of calling it Chess Queen, people decided to call it Mad Queen Chess because we all know that women are crazy.
Maybe we should get into chess.
Nope. No.
If your king is being threatened, you have to protect it or move it, and if you can't, the game is over. Those are the basic rules, but it's pretty hard to win without exploits. For example, if you brute force your king towards the rook without moving either piece first, they can clip through each other. This is called castling. For pawns, they can get a speed boost at the start of the game, just like in Mario Kart, and there's also this glitch where if you use one pawn to pass an adjacent pawn, that pawn can still take you. Speedrunners love this rule, but most people don't know about it because it's only a few hundred years old. It's called en passant, which is French for hold my beer, and while there are lots of tactical times to do this, the only time you need to do it is when it makes you look cool. If the pawn hits the end of the wall, it can technically go full on berserker mode and turn into a queen.
Maybe we should get into chess.
A lot of people think this is quite feminist for a game that's 1500 years old because chess is saying trans rights and it explains why we have a short king, but one of the options is also for you to turn into a horse.
Nope. No.
So chess openings are a bit like Pokemon. They all have weird names, they come from all over the planet, there are well over 1,000 of them, but if you didn't learn them all in childhood, you'll never be the very best in adulthood. Names for openings can vary from the Stonewall attack, where a drag queen throws a brick at you, to the Sicilian, where your opponent plays without horses, the reverse Sicilian, where they do that to you, and the reverse, that's just moving forward, or the French defence, where you behead the king and then surrender. The middle game is when most of your pieces are developed, and maybe a few of them have died, but by no means have you lost the game completely yet, and you do still have a chance of winning. Only an idiot would call this the endgame.
We're in the endgame now.
Moving on. So the close of a match is called the endgame, and if you've made it this far it means you're patient in a challenging endeavour. But enough about the video. The endgame is when most of the material on the board has been eliminated, so the king gets major tactical use. Standard advice is to go full on King Joffrey mode here, so kill anyone you can, use your mum to your advantage, and do not drink the wine. The factors you want to consider are outflanking, triangulation, and zugzwang. Zugzwang is where you have to make a choice, but every choice you make is a bad choice to make. It's also known as being alive. The easy way to be great at chess is to never play. People say that practice makes perfect, but consider this. Magnus Carlsen is known as the best chess player across the board. He's done loads of practice and he still loses. If you never play, you never lose. Look at chess puzzles. I don't know why these help, and in my mind the real chess puzzle is, where did these bishops learn to fight? Playing a move. A lot of people think the best tactic is thinking 50 moves ahead and having everyone cheer your name, but most of chess is just losing a match and realising all of the ways you could have won had you been smarter. Also, if you realise a mistake in-game, just remember, it's only a blunder if you lose the match. Until then, it's a strategic sacrifice. Play proper games. Chess puzzles and books can help, but the best way to improve is to play games, win, and then wait for people online to explain why you're an expert. Also, don't learn off the experts. When you watch professionals play their galaxy brain moves, the level of skill going on is going to be so complicated that a lot of the time they just won't be able to tell you how they did it.
Chess speaks for itself.
Also, talking to people frightens them. Instead, watch people a little bit better than you. It gives you a grasp of knowledge that's just outside your reach. Or, you could watch idiots play. They're completely incoherent, none of it makes sense, and you won't get any better, but you will feel so much better about yourself for doing so. Also, being a chess idiot is fine, and it doesn't mean that you're an idiot. It can, it just doesn't have to. There's no RNG in chess, and it has very little bias, so a lot of people feel that failure can be an intellectual one, as opposed to a game like Halo, where your failure is buying Halo. It's 2023. Move on. But being good at chess doesn't mean you're smart, it just means you're smart at chess. In the Middle Ages, the game was banned because the church thought it was too close to gambling. So you might think that chess makes you look like an intellectual, but in the eyes of Pope Urban VI, you're basically sucking off a slot machine. The reason chess is more popular now than it was in 2019 is for the same reason I know all the moves to the WAP Dance Challenge. We all made mistakes in lockdown. An aid to this was the 2020 adaptation of the book The Queen's Gambit, a show about a young woman facing misogyny in the chess world. A lot of people think this was very feminist of Netflix, who took a character described as unattractive and ugly, and cast a literal supermodel. But despite the increase in popularity, it's really important to remember that when it comes to chess, some people literally don't care. You can point out that a game where you predict opponents' moves while sitting next to two clocks means that every game is 4D chess, and it doesn't matter. You can talk about homebrewing all you want or beg for new maps, it's not going to happen. Sometimes in chess you can win the battle, but you may not win the war, and sometimes you can win the tournament, but cool kids will still always take your lunch money.